Welcome back and welcome to the first video of 2024. And today, as a start of a new year, I will be showing some of my favorite palettes for winter themed makeup. So I hope everyone has been having a good holiday season, and if you don't celebrate Christmas time, then generally just good end of the year and a change of the year season. But I thought that it would be nice to start the new year with the sort of palette favorite video or sort of palette themed video, because eyeshadow palettes are something that I like to do most on my channel. And I have 6 palettes here all together that I chose for this sort of my perfect winter eyeshadow palettes. And these are of course always, as in all my other videos, these are like my opinion about these sort of palettes, and I would of course love to hear in the comments below that what are your sort of favorite winter eyeshadow palettes. And I'm looking at the palettes in front of me. I have only indie and higher end palettes in this, but if you have watched some of my other eyeshadow videos, you do know that I don't buy a lot of drugstore makeup, so today only indie and higher end eyeshadow palettes for this sort of video. This isn't a ranking per se, so all of these palettes are sort of like equal in this video, so they are equal favorites for winter themed eyeshadow. But let's get to the palettes themselves, and first I will be going through my sort of indie themed eyeshadow palette for winter. So let's get to the first one, which is a very big one and something that I did get quite recently. So this is the Louise, and this was called the If Looks Could Chill palette. So I did at the end of the year sort of an order on Louise's website because I wanted to try what the brand is about. And there will be coming out a sort of collective review, just as I did with my Kiko Milano purchases from last year. There will also be a collective review of this. So this was sort of my Black Friday haul, and then I decided that I want to try their sort of mystery box launch, which is a way that Louise has a habit of doing so that they launch their new products at the mystery box, which is a bit more cheaper. However, for someone ordering outside the UK, and the fact that if you ordered the mystery box, you actually was like you couldn't then take the more inexpensive shipping, but I actually had to pay 20 euros for shipping. And because of Brexit, I had to pay value-added tax when I imported this, so how should I say, the order, even though it was a Black Friday order, and then there was the budget box, which is supposed to be a more sort of inexpensive way to get the brand's products, it actually wasn't that inexpensive, but because I made a big order, it was worth it. But why this palette is included here, so, okay, first thing you're probably gonna say that you hate blues, and this is correct. So first thing that I will say, and I will mention this again when the review video is out, I ordered the budget box before I had seen any sneak peeks of it, so I didn't know I was getting a blue palette until I had made the order, and then I saw they started sneak peeking this on social media. But this is essentially, like, aside from it being like very huge, it has 2 sections. So there's the teal section here, and then there's the sort of blue section here, and let's see how long I will be able to keep these up. I'm sorry about the background noise. There's the dishwasher is going on the in the kitchen currently. But back to the palette. So obviously why this is as a winter themed palette is that this is essentially very this is based on winter. So there's a lot of blues. There is a lot of icy shades. Icy shades in this. Generally, I think that if you are a huge fan of especially icy blue eyeshadow and then a minty teal eyeshadow, that's the sort of bottom part of this, then this is a very quintessential winter palette. Generally, I would say that if you haven't tried Louise before, it is one of those more like sort of pigmented indie eyeshadow brands, so you won't get any subtle looks out of these. But if you really like your sort of blue and minty eyeshadow looks, then this is something that I could now recommend, as I have been trying this. I will give some and the theming of this is quite fun. There is like this sort of like winter sweaters and sort of other clothes going with it under the cover, but this is also like very unnecessary, like bulky. This is like huge palette to store, but if you really like these shades and Louise is a brand that's easily available to you, then you won't be disappointed in terms of the quality. So that's the first sort of indie eyeshadow palette for the winter. So the next one that I will be showing, this was also in my Christmas ranking, but why this is here, so this is the Christmas Eve palette from Oden, and I'm gonna now, let's see if I can actually bend that. No, let's not break it. And this is what the palette looks like. So why this is here? Well, the Merry Christmas palette is a very in-your-face Christmas palette which has the reds and greens. I do think that this Christmas Eve palette is actually something that you would also enjoy as a purely winter themed palette. So compared to the P. Louise ones, this is very muted. So this is like much more like how I like to use my blues and purples. So this is this sort of very muted. There are some also neutral shades. So what I especially like about this as a winter palette is that you can get some bolder looks in this one, but you can also get some very lot of subtle neutral looks, and with then a pop of some of these like amazing shimmers that these have, then you will be able to like create some interest to the look. And with Oden's Eye, I just think that you can't go wrong with the quality, and I think that when I'm thinking about the palettes that they have available right now, this is like the only... Well, I think the Angie Halloween, the little ghost palette that I also have in my collection, I was contemplating including that, but because the blues and purples in that are much brighter, I will categorize it more as a spring palette. But if you have this lying around, the sort of Christmas Eve palette, this is another like recommendation if you especially like the sort of more muted winter themed looks, and the packaging of this is very, very beautiful. I like the sort of silver blue theme this has going on. Next is an sort of like maybe a palette that I would more categorize as an accent palette or something that I can't use alone. So this is the Minka palette from Adept Cosmetics, and I think if you're especially looking for these sort of like silvery shimmer shades to sort of top off like other sort of mattes that you like to use, then this is a good something that I would also recommend for winter time. Some of these shimmers, they are quite similar when you get them to dye, so you don't get a super lot of variety in this, and this is also something I discussed, for example, in my 2023 palette ranking when talking about this. But I do believe that with like almost with any of these shimmers, especially if you pair them with cool toned mattes, you will get this sort of very sparkly winter looks, and this is also very good for all of those winter themed winter time parties that you will go attend, because these will really give you an impact. The only downside of this, I would say that quite a lot of these shimmers are quite chunky, so maybe for a more textured lid or someone more mature, this might not be as flattering, and you definitely have to use your fingers. So these shimmers, you can't apply them with your brush, they won't stick to your brush, so you will have to use fingers with this one, and they are more chunkier, so that's just something that you have to take into consideration. But if you love a lot of like this silvery sparkle, then this is another great winter palette recommendation from me. Next is a more sort of an inexpensive indie brand, and this is the Cosmic Brushes, or as they're now known, Cosmic Beauty, and this is the Serenity palette. So I didn't get the Winter Wonderland palette because, unlike with the P. Louise palette, I was able to see beforehand that the color story of the palette, and I knew immediately that I would not want to buy it because it has blues, and it had these sort of bright blues and bright purples. And now I have the P. Louise palette anyway, which I didn't know beforehand I would be getting until I had made the order. So I'm now quite good with my bright blues. But if you don't, for some reason, like you, for example, you weren't now able to get the sort of Winter Wonderland palette that the brand came, like back to the like brand, so with Cosmic Brushes. So if you weren't able to get the Winter Wonderland palette, but you have the Serenity one, I would pick out the Serenity one, because another reason why I sort of went that do I really want to get the Winter Wonderland one, while it sort of has the sort of upgraded shimmer formula and it has some of the like multi-chromes that Cosmic Brushes have been doing, I do believe that there is bit sort of overlap with this one and the Winter Wonderland one. So this, if you have this Serenity lying around, this has quite a lot of these sort of cool toned blues and cool toned purples, and even the greens here. There is a bit of a mint green over here, and also quite a lot of the shimmers, the purple, the dark blue, and then this white one that has a bit of a shift to it, and then there's of course this sort of a metal grey blue here. So you actually do get quite a lot of winter themed sort of shades in this one. So I would actually like maybe make the consideration that unless you really like the color story of the Winter Wonderland one, then maybe think that if you have the Serenity, then could this actually like have your fill of this sort of winter themed shades. And the quality of this one, even though this is an older palette from the brand, the quality, and even though this is a color story that I primarily don't gravitate towards, however, the quality of this is as good as the brand's other palettes. So again, if you have this lying around, then dig it out, and I assure you, you will get quite a lot of winter themed looks also with this one without having to order the Winter Wonderland one, unless you like then, but I'm also not gonna say that this is exactly like the Winter Wonderland one, because obviously this also had some like peaches and greens in it, but I do think that I actually like this one also more because the peaches and greens do add variety to the looks that you can create with this one, and not just like monochromatic blue and purple looks. So next let's get to the higher end, and from higher end brands I had 3 palettes that I thought that would be the perfect like winter palettes, and these are, I'd say, all a bit more like the indie palettes I just showed. All had a bit of a color to them, they were quite in your face, but I think that if you're one that wants to more sort of subtle winter themed cool toned look, then these would be good options. First I'm gonna show something that I ranked really highly on my yearly ranking, so this is the Dior Silver Essentials palette. And I think that this is especially, I'm actually gonna put it closer to the frame so you will, the camera, so you will hopefully be able to see a bit what I'm talking about. So with this one, first of all, as I said on my yearly eyeshadow palette ranking with my higher end palettes in 2023, the quality of this is very like, it's spectacular, the build of these, how much these build, but in the same time how blendable these are, so you can't go wrong in terms of the quality. And I think this is especially for those of you who really like smoky eye and silver grey looks, this is a very good 9-pan palette option to get. You won't get super like shiny shimmers, the like most sparkle you will get one is this sort of shimmer up here, and even that's not like super sparkly, but if you're especially like someone who likes this sort of very effortless cool toned grey and a bit of a purple popping looks, then this is a good, and I'm actually not purple, but more like you can get some subtle lilac looks with this one. So a great, I would say, recommend more sort of a grey toned, cool toned recommendation for the winter from Dior, if this is still something that's available, because I do know that this has, I think at least in my country, quite a lot of retailers have sold this out, and I'm not sure was this a limited edition release, but if you're able to get this and this is a color story you would be interested in using, then I would get it. The next higher end palette was actually technically a holiday palette, however I do think that this is actually more sort of, I'd say, an winter like sort of old school glamour palette generally. So this is the Chanel Lumiere Graphique, and this was Chanel's holiday launch this year, and I'm gonna now, again, because it's a smaller quint, I will put it closer to the camera so you will be able to get a impression of it. So I think that if especially because for example the Dior one I showed before this, it was quite like still very like grey tone, lilac heavy, and it's very like, I'd say, an obvious cool toned palette. But if you want a cool toned look but that is still like very sort of subtle and glamorous in sort of like old school glam, then I would actually like recommend this one. So it is very cool toned, but it is quite in the same time very neutral leaning, and you will be able to get some depth with this. So there is the brown shade and the black shade over here, but again, it's not gonna be like the black. You can actually build that if you really want a smoky eye, then you can certainly do it with this one. But what I do like about this, that you can build depth in a really subtle way with this one. So this is the recommendation for those who are looking a bit more subtle, cool toned look, and if you're looking for more sort of easy makeup option, like this is a very like in one way foolproof way and very easy palette to create a look with. So you either sort of use this sort of like this shade looks quite orange, but this also goes quite cool toned in your skin. But I usually have created my looks that I have either used this one or the more gold one as a base, then I use one of the darker looks to deepen up my corner, and then I put this sort of white one that has a bit more shimmer to it in the middle of my lid. And this is sort of very quick and easy eye look that I can create with this one. But it will be very cool toned one, which for me makes it very appropriate for this time of the year. And I think it wouldn't be a seasonal palette video if there wouldn't be at least one Pat McGrath palette included in it. So for this particular video I chose the Pat McGrath Divine Rose one. This was also just like the Oden Christmas Eve one, this was also included my Christmas Eve palette. Sorry, my Christmas palette sort of favorites video that I did, but just like with the Oden this is another palette that I would also recommend just as a general winter palette. And I think also like with the Chanel that I showed previously, so this is a bit more neutral leaning, so if you don't want so in your face cool toned gray looks, but you want something bit cool leaning, then this, I think the Divine Rose one is a good option, because the shades are still, I think, leaning more on the neutral side and some of them bit on the cooler side, but it's not like super gray toned cool scale leaning. And something else that particularly when as I said on my Christmas sort of palette video, and similarly why I would recommend this as a winter, what makes this sort of like an ideal winter sort of party palette, is this sort of one shimmer shade that the palette has, which basically when you top any of other shades in it, you will get this sort of very nice sparkly, almost whimsical look. I also think that let's see, this one, the sort of, this one here that shifts, so this is let's see if it's gonna pick on the camera, maybe. I can't see the viewfinder again because I don't have my glasses on. But what I like about the sort of duochrome multichrome shade, so this sort of like, while this is like very rosy gold, it is not as warm, because in the Divine Rose 2 there is a very similar, the sort of very bright, I think it's a pink or gold shade that has a similar, but that's very warm toned. However, I also feel that the sort of rosy gold shifting shade in it, it's not as warm as some of the other rosy gold shifting shade that Pat McGrath has done quite a lot in her palettes. So altogether, I think combined with the mattes and the sort of shimmers that this has, like if you want to stay within the more neutral side with your winter looks, but you want something bit more to bring sort of like cooler in your eye looks, then this is a good option if you have it in your collection, or if you think about getting this one. So that was the last palette of this ranking. Comment down below what did you think about my palettes, and what have been sort of your favorite palettes to use this time of the year. If you liked this video, then press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to get notifications from my future videos, then ring the bell button below. You can also find me on Instagram with the nickname Makeup Hedgehog. I hope you're having a very good beginning to your 2024 years, and I will be seeing you again in another video soon. Bye bye!